welcome. It's Danny G Live. It is Friday. Hey, Chelsea Marriott. This is a very, very special edition of Danny G Live. I'm so excited to have on my guest today, the amazing, iconic, legendary Duncan Cooper. So hopefully I will see his name pop up sooner than later, and we will start talking with Duncan. For those who don't know Duncan Cooper, Duncan was a principal dancer, leading dancer with both San Francisco Ballet as well as Dance Theater of Harlem. And I've known Duncan for years. He is royalty in the dance world to me and to so many others. He's also gone on to choreograph and to teach and so many things. So hopefully Duncan will be joining us soon. But in the meantime, happy Friday. I'm in my music nook. I think that's what we call it. A music nook. And anyway, it's been a great week. Still going strong with Summer Stage Anywhere and all of our online video offerings coming up this Monday, August 3rd. If you guys are around, please join us on Summer Stage Anywhere on Facebook and YouTube. I think it will be also streamed to Instagram Live. I will be interviewing the amazing dancers, Desmond Richardson and Kalia Campbell, both from Alvin Ailey at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So anyhow, I do see my friend Duncan on the chat, and I'm going to bring him in right now. I can't wait. Hey. Yes. Hey, Duncan, say something.
How are you?
You sound good. Let me see.
Okay. La la la! There we go. Oh,
How are you? How are you?
I am good. I'm currently in the Corona capital of the world right now, Florida.
Oh,
In Orlando, Florida, doing a big national dance convention. And yeah, so it starts over the next 6 days. We've got a lot of dancers flying in.
mm-hmm.
And it's interesting.
Yeah.
Considering what's, Tampa, where I live in Orlando, are nowhere near as bad as the Miami-Dade area is as far as infection. That is really like ground zero. So it's a little better in these areas, but it's interesting, because I've had to sort of prep myself. A week ago, I went to Nashville, Tennessee. So I teach for several big dance conventions, UBC, which is Universal Ballet Competition.
Yeah.
Really well known around the country. And then also Revel Dance Convention, which is more commercial where I'm their ballet teacher. And so the Nationals, for those of you that don't know what that is when all the kids from all the different cities have competed throughout the years, they come and convene in one place and they compete.
Right.
They don't have anywhere near the kids that they've had, obviously, last year because of the pandemic. But it's interesting to see who's made this sort of decision to come out, made this sort of mental commitment. And it's been interesting for me. My wife, Ariana, also works for the company. So we've got a whole prep situation that we've had to sort of develop in order to make this happen.
Yeah, tell us about that, because I'm sure people are wondering, like, how are you going to bring all these dancers together safely?
Yeah,
freaking out.
I mean, it is. We have some very challenged leadership, as I'm sure as you all well know. That's the nicest way I'll put it right now. Or no leadership, and so a lot of people are confused. There's a lot of information that's all over the place. My motto is, it's better to wear a mask than wear a ventilator. Okay, so
yes,
it's not that big of a deal. In fact, fancy it up, So we had to figure out what it is we needed to bring for us to be safe. The convention, there's several conventions that are doing a really incredible job to protecting their employees, their faculty, the dancers, such as Revel, STG, Shake the Ground is another one that did an incredible job from really doing all the right things. So let me show you. For me, for example, the masks. You have your regular mask, Danny, and then you have these K, for example, here's one maker. This is a KN95. You look like a duck or a dinosaur. The regular masks are not as protective as these. So I would recommend anybody that has to travel as much as I do to invest in some of these. The N95 is the standard, which you see at the hospitals all the time. The N95 is the Chinese version, but it's the one that's more readily available, and you can still buy online. They're slowly restocking up with the N95s. So this, I know, doesn't look cute, but as you can see here, you can spice it up. This is a mask I wear on top from a local mask shop that does masks out of Detroit, African-owned business, and they raise about $70,000 for the community. So you can spice up different mask coverings. You bring a lot of your Lysol. This is like, I use this more than I drink water at this point.
Yes.
And then you would do this too here, which is, can you see this? This is about the size of my hand. That's an air purifier. So I put that in the room, and so it's always cleaning the air. And this is like a whole session you're getting here. I have this thing called, which is a black UV light carrier, which you can then swab your phone and all of the high touch surfaces with, and it's supposed to kill part of that. Who knows if it works, but it works for my mind. So, and you have a lot of
the whole setup. I love it.
Now, the last thing, for those of you that don't like wearing those big shield guards when you're teaching, Ari and I have these, which I highly recommend. So these would look cute on you. They're little goggle glasses.
Yes.
So if you have spray that gets on you,
right,
you can wear those. This is the guy version, like Mr. Worthy on the Lakers, circa 1980. So, I mean, those are some of the things. And there are some masks, Danny, for your viewers, where you can get these filters that actually go, most of them now you see have a sleeve that will go inside if you want an extra layer. So, I mean, there's plenty of ways to protect yourself. I have a lot of turnover of clothing that I wear. So when I do my warm-ups, if it's on the rug in these ballrooms, I'm immediately, before classes, I change and I have a laundry bag. And so I keep stuff separately. I only wear one workout outfit at a time. And they're doing a lot of changes where they have big, like, space pads where each dancer will, be 6 feet apart when they're lining up for things. Instead of having hundreds of kids in the ballrooms, it'll be one studio at a time, does their solos, and then they exit to the other side. Everybody wears masks. They take it off for their routine solo. It's just you on this huge stage. Then you have to put it back on. I don't think there's. I think there's only a few people in the audience, and I think we have a live stream where you can actually watch. The parents want to.
Oh, that's great.
Line up in their hotel room and talk garbage. That girl, whatever, you can do that, and so it's very smartly thought out. The classes are much smaller. They are in taped 6 to 8 inch boxes. They have to stay within their box when they're doing the combos, which can get challenging. Particularly when you're trying to do stuff across the floor, to really be mindful enough that you got to remind them the social distance. Me being the sort of goofball that I am, I try to use analogies like pretend someone smells. No, you wouldn't. You'd be like,
right. Ooh. So wait, because people can be tricky. Have you gotten any pushback from parents or students about their child wearing the masks?
I think I personally haven't gotten any pushback. I think probably it's because I'm the whatever celebrity faculty. I know that all of these conventions and competitions are getting pushback on a level where the administrative people really have to deal with those things. The owners, the directors, and the managers, they have to deal with all that stuff, and the diva faculty. So they're the ones, that really have to deal with a lot of that personally, the letters and things. And I think there was some pushback, but in general, I think you have to pick and choose your battles, right? Because do you want pictures posted of you in a room with no dancers, no mask on, and you don't have any mask on in Florida, which has almost the highest infection rate, and you want that to go all over the internet, and that you could look really bad. Or someone complaining that my daughter has to wear a mask, and really, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And are
you know
you,
how,
when you're signing up your students now, I mean, as this world is changing, have you guys made that part of the sign up, like you have to consent to your kid's going to wear a mask?
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a release consent form that they have to sign. I know for my workshop, it's the same thing. Kids at my Duncan Cooper workshop after this big nationals, it's about 35 dancers in a 8,500 foot space. So mass, they have to sign a waiver, and yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'll make sure your event insurance is correct.
So you did this as in like some faux celebrity crap, which is, come on, Duncan Cooper, don't
Well,
try to outplay your legacy, boo boo.
not really where we. That's not what we really grew up in. You know what I mean? I feel like the concepts of monetary wealth, financially, spiritually, and just in different things, they diverge, but they're very different based on the structural makeup. Whether it's Broadway's a little different, film is a little different, fine arts is a little different. Um, some of these real contemporary, commercial, choreographers can command these huge contracts, which that just wasn't a reality. So there's just I think there's certain ways they view things that are very different,
Yeah.
which are all relative. But I mean, they all have their own sort of little culture, as you well know, having been the incredible artist that you were for so many years that you never like to talk about. We always try to
Well,
tease you about.
same.
Stunningly beautiful and a stunningly beautiful artist, and everybody knows it. So I think a lot of people just know you for who you are now,
Yeah.
because you're just this chapter of you is amazing. You know what I'm saying? So, but when they look back, you could really be interviewing you.
Oh, well, that's exactly what I'm saying. Do do your students understand like your career lane? Do they understand? Like, of course, us in the concert dance world, we know you as dancer no, but like Duncan Cooper, you still are that pinnacle inspiration male ballet dancer. That come on, man, listen.
I'm gonna pay you back for all that saying that. I mean, how much can a 13-year-old really know? Or an 18-year-old, particularly if they're not making a concerted effort to investigate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Most of the time, they just see, again, like I was saying with you, this Duncan, this chapter of me, and then they see me with, my fabulous afro and my tights, looking fabulous and jumping, and they're like, "That's you,"
Well, it is cool when they discover it, and then it's a whole new generation
Cool.
about.
Yeah, it is really cool. I mean, I try. That's like it's almost 2 lifetimes ago to me. I kind of,
Say,
I love what I did, and I'm proud of who I was and what I accomplished. But at the same time, you know how it is. You kind of want to let that go, but allow that to influence who you become now, who you are becoming constantly. So I think too. I think they do understand who I am, because I'm constantly also throwing old photos of me in their faces, and you see that 90 degrees there? No, but I mean, the older ones get it, and I think too, sometimes it depends on what sort of dance background they're coming from.
yeah.
Sometimes the ballet dancers are a little bit more curious. They'll be like trying to look for pictures of you online, and um, so it's yeah. I'm digressing. Sorry.
For people that are watching that maybe are not familiar with who you are, I mean, I adore and love you and know some of the story, most, not maybe all of the story.
Yeah.
But can we go back there? Because I'm curious. Like, you may have told me years ago when we first were hanging out back in the late 90s, 2000s, whenever that was. So, but the start. So born in Colorado, in Denver?
Denver, Colorado. Couldn't tell you anything about Colorado if you dropped me there to save my life. So I really grew up in New York. Both my parents were musicians. My father was African American. My mother was Caucasian. He wanted to be a classical musician. Was a classical musician. So was she. He didn't really get the work that my mother did. I don't think at that time there was a lot. And God forbid my mom, my dad watching this right now. Now I think when you audition, I think you have to audition behind something. So then it's just a lot challenging being a black man in this sort of classical orchestra, where most of your donors at that time were sort of more of a white audience in a sort of not too pleasing on the eye for those types of people at that time. I think it lost a lot of work, to put it bluntly and as quickly without getting into it any further, without expanding on it. And but he did get a lot of work on Broadway and other things. It's just I don't think those are the things he wanted. So hear him say he works with Barry White, you know, played background music for these people. I'm like, what? You know, proud of that, but it's not really what he wanted to do. You know, played in the orchestra, I think, for Sophisticated Ladies. You know, me sitting backstage and not realizing that who these people were. You know, I just don't think it was the same as his passion, his love for music. So,
right.
What I did do was my mother playing for the New York City Ballet Orchestra. You know, I got to see a lot of ballet very early.
I don't think I ever knew that. See,
yeah, I remember seeing her as a little boy, and I guess this is the time Misha was with New York City Ballet. The doors opening, and with my mom and her violin, and there was this massive man with this, like, he just came off stage, gigantic thighs and white tights. I was like, you know, and it was Baryshnikov, I guess. And then years later I saw him and I just realized, you know, he's so small, I'm so tall.
He is very short, but listen,
being around the arts at that time, because of my mother and my father, really influenced me. I grew up on great performances, so I saw Dance to Harlem. I saw all those different things, you know, and it really just influenced my interest with my Bowl of Grapes and Sesame Street and Kung Fu and great performances. So I eventually, my parents divorced. I eventually moved out to California with my mother, back and forth between two sides. Joined the San Francisco Ballet School. Ended up getting Lou Christensen Scholarship for Most Outstanding Male Dancer. Got into the company right in as a.
Well, let's not just gloss over this, people. This is Duncan Cooper, you guys. If you're just joining us, he's trying to like go through this all fast and gloss over these amazing accomplishments. I'm not going to let you do it because I took notes here. Let me consult notes. My little tattered notebook. Let me consult. Wait a minute.
Commercial. Go to commercial.
San Francisco Ballet School was the first, you correct me if I'm wrong though, first recipient of that scholarship you spoke of, the Lou Christensen Scholarship. First recipient, okay, for excellence in dance. Then the first student in the school to be then promoted to the company? Yeah. Duncan, come on now. How is going to, you know, pass by that all quick? So tell me how, so were you did you go right from the school to the main group?
I remember, you know, they had, I had already been kind of working with the company on tour at the time. Went on a couple tours with them. I was already going to a special private school to do my schoolwork. And I remember, this is Helgi Tomlinson saw the school show or graduation performances. He had the little studio set up and he sat at home and announced all the apprentices. He didn't announce me. And my dad was like, come on now, we're going to New York. You know, like he was ready. All right, if it's not going to happen, get on a plane. You got some audition to do. You know, like he was already like, it's not going to happen, it's fine. It's okay. There's next thing, you know. And Helgi, which is so untypical for him because he's not very an outward going person like Mitchell was, Mr. Mitchell. So he sort of walked away from the podium and then he came back to the podium and then he said, oh, I forgot to tell everybody. And then Duncan Cooper will be going to the company. So that was, you know, like his little games he used to play, stuff like that, which was really, really cute and funny. And so that was, you know, that was how that sort of happened.
So you were there for 7 years? From
Michael Schmuen to, you know, to that turnover from the old guard and the new guard, Michael Schmuen to Helgi Tomlinson. I was there for, I think, 5 or 6 years. And I had 3 knee surgeries over a 2-year period. And this was right when I was getting to do a lot of soloist work, but I hadn't gotten my soloist contract. And I had gotten to a point where there were a lot of really weird things going on. Like I was so stressed out, Danny, that I wasn't sleeping much and my lymph nodes got big and I had black tongue where I was bleeding from stress on my tongue. What? Go get a, what do you call it, where they take a little thing because they thought it was cancer.
Biopsy?
But yeah, biopsy. Thank you.
Yeah.
And because I mean, but that's how stressed I become, and I had all these other injuries building on my body because I wasn't taking care of them. My knee surgery, so all these other areas were working. My back was breaking down, my hip was breaking down, all these things. But this was this opportunity, or I was getting to dance more solo stuff. This is my chance, and I had a real just mental breakdown, sort of, not that dramatic, but you know, for me at that
What?
time, I actually taken out of my contract.
Oh,
Yeah.
say
So
that. Say that one more time.
so I had so many injuries and I was so exhausted, and we were going to be going to Paris, and I just couldn't do my job anymore effectively. And I, in my conference, end of the year conference, you know, you always have with your director, I basically asked him if he could, I told him I just didn't think I would make it through the Paris tour, and I needed some time to heal. And could I basically wanted to out of my contract, and he wouldn't let me out. Wanted to think about it.
Huh.
But it's funny, that day, you know how there's a whole list of you go in, that person goes in, you wait, and then you go in. Oh my! I won't mention his name, but this person went in before me, got in this huge fight with him, and I could hear them yelling, and I was just like, oh my God, this is not time to go in there and tell them all this, like, you know. So I
Mm.
already, the director was already tense, and he's like, yes, and I'm like, yeah. Yeah. So I basically walked away from that contract and took about a year off in New York, and that's where Mr. Mitchell heard that I was in New York, because my father used to be the orchestra contractor for a short period. Um, and you know, at that time, you know, my dad was the general manager of Sylvia's Soul Food Restaurant. So I guess Mr. Mitchell would, you know, sneak down there and go have some soul food, and would always inquire a little bit, like, what's up with that, you know. And
Yeah.
so when he heard that, he, you know, he told my dad, called him several times, like, tell him to come up to Dance Theater Harlem. Not just have him come up and watch classes. Let me talk to him a little bit. So, you know, he's ready to get his hands on me and acquire me away. You know, because the
Yeah.
idea, eventually, I wanted to go audition for ABT at some point, or just try to go back to San Francisco Ballet. And I know that that was the goal, even at San Francisco Ballet, was that I'd probably take a year off and we reassess things. Um,
Let me ask you this though. Let's go back though a little bit because I'm really
but
curious. This stress. What was caused? Was there an initial injury that was causing more of the stress, or was it stress that led to your body just like?
I was, you know, I had some smaller injuries, which really to me weren't related. When I was 13 and 14, I went away to Caracas, Venezuela to train with Nina Novak, because I was thinking about doing Jackson that year, which was Alexis Ubria's teacher. She offered me an opportunity to come work with her. And I was having some ankle trouble then, and it got to the point where my ankle kept swelling up on me. Eventually, it was bone spurs that were tearing apart my Achilles tendon, and I would hear a pop, and then my foot would swell up. So it was frustrating for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a couple other smaller injuries, but I don't know if those built into what happened 5 or 6 years later. You know, I'm in the company, and I just remember, I don't remember, it was never like I really hurt it or like I did a jump. It was like I was walking up the stairs coming out of the subway, and I couldn't walk up the stairs.
Ah.
It was really weird.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of did sort of sidestep. And then it just started to build up. And what it really was a pantyhose tear on the lateral side of my meniscus. And or I ended up having surgery, came back too fast, it tore more. I came back, and then the third time a blood clot grew over the area that didn't produce enough blood there, so I'd have more taken out. You know, so you know, I had some back problems, some hip problems, but they were always worked out in the physical therapy room. We had an incredible physical therapist who always believed in teaching us about our injuries and finding other ways to strengthen other areas to make you stronger. You know, when you're young, Danny, you know how it is. You'll push and not really think. You'll push.
Yeah.
I was never marked. Would always do. You know, go in all 5 groups. You know, you're working harder than working smarter, which is being, you know, as you know, young and so hungry. I mean, it's your everything. You're like a young soldier, you know, never experienced combat before. You don't think about that your leg's going to be blown off and all that. You're just completely enamored by the whole culture and the idea of moving up the ranks and getting to dance some of these roles that very few people might have the opportunity with one of the greatest companies in the world, working with choreographers that you looked at in books and saw in magazines and saw their works. And this was
No,
such a whole
true.
moment where you can actually get to work with these people. And I'll be damned if a little old hip, little knee, whatever, not me, you know, like, and
No,
then
true.
people who are less, that you sometimes feel are less talented, or you are just as good at getting the roles
Mm-hmm.
that, or maybe they have. I remember there was, at that time, there's one dancer who just had a horrible attitude, but because I was injured, they were getting all the roles, and I was like, why me? You know, all that young stuff you do. So, the injuries were a process of you learning about myself,
Yeah,
and and they're humbling,
they
right?
are so humbling, right?
You don't think about, like, you know, when I hear these football players, the older ones, talk about, you're, to the younger ones, you know, you're just focused about now, but you have your whole life after football,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 10 years or less. You have 40 more years. Like, you know, how are you, you don't think about that. You don't think,
No.
you know, so the fact that I had so many injuries and I had as long a career as I did is mind blowing when I look back on it. The fact that I was able to, after being lost a little bit, like most of us do when your passion is taken away from you, which we only get to keep, particularly as these little human demigod dancer things where you get to do this craft and you think you're going to be that way forever. And then
Boom.
boom, sort of, as you well know, sort of reassess, who am I? Where am I going? It's like a death. It really is like a death. And you have to
Yeah.
research stuff. A lot of weird, interesting things happen, right? You go through the whole, can I ever do anything as good as that again? You start using that as a pedestal to, well, people see me as this. I can't do anything else but this. Or you get addicted to the stage and the traveling. Um, it's a, you know, a lot of things. Something that's been your calling.
Yeah, all of the
Oh,
above is true. I mean, after I had my injury with Ailey, I mean, cut short career at 27, just really reaching my pinnacle at Ailey or starting to crest. I mean, I was doing leading roles early on in the company, but right when I got injured was right when I was beginning to learn cry. And so my hip would be on fire.
yes.
Oh, well, there was no way. I kept negotiating with my doctor, my surgeon. I kept renegotiating with him. Listen, just get me through a little bit longer. Just you know, you keep renegotiating, right? And please just let me do this for as long as I can, man. And so, but there was a whole article in Dance Magazine, I want to say a few months ago, where just what you were just saying about dancers pushing through
Yeah.
for doing it. It's not always smart. It's not always the best thing to do, but that's what we do because let's be real, especially in the top tier jobs. Those are few and far between, especially, I hate to say it, bring it up, but black dancers even more so. So, you know, we try to hang on to whatever tendons and jobs that we can
It's
as
just,
we're
the
doing.
skill talk has to go both ways.
Yeah.
That's that I think is missing sometimes. Like figuring out a way to phrase to students or young dancers that, yeah, you may not get a shot at this again, but 10 years from now you may not be able to walk. I mean, that's reality between the two severe things. I don't want one or the other to happen, but
Yeah.
he said
Mm-hmm.
never happen. And I know you might be going through a thing where I don't even want to talk about it, but you kind of have to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you coming back to me 10 years from now with a broke down whatever saying so and so told me to push through this and why didn't I? I'm giving you the clear options. So don't, you know, the whole reality is good and bad. You know, sort of prepare for the worst, expect the best. You
Yeah.
know, and then so that they can make a more clear, rational decision without trying to permeate it with what they might see as too much negativity that
Mm-hmm.
make them, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to over communicate as much as I can to young dancers now. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
did you ever have a situation, Danny, where I remember being on tour with DTH um, in Australia, and I remember going to Charmaine Hunter, and I remember because the knee came back again in DTH, never went away, right? And you change, you apply and adapt as you get older. I remember there were several times at DTH where my knee got really bad again.
Mm.
I couldn't finish rehearsals, or I would just be like, Mr. Mitchell would be like, "Why are you marking?" And I'd look at him like, "Cause you're either getting a full out in this right here, or you know what I'm saying, and
Yes.
no one else to cover me right now. So you can go ahead and give me shade and be mad at me.
Mm-hmm.
Know what I need to do." And at that time, I was old enough to realize, like, you go ahead and do your little crazy yelling performance for all the other dancers you want to. I know what I need to do. What you really care about is me making it through those 5 shows, because you don't have anybody prepared.
That's
You
right.
give them to look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those are things maybe, I would joke around, maybe years later, you joke around, we talk about it. But I remember being in rehearsals where I could put weight on it and it would just burn, and thinking like, I don't know how I'm going to get through the show. And at that time we had some younger dancers that they weren't ready,
Mm.
or if they were going to have to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember pleading with my physical therapist, like you are, just like, all right, we need to get something going here,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people in sports, you can't put on a knee brace on stage.
Oh.
XL Nike pump double T2 shoes and go out there all wrapped up, limping around like this, but still catch the football and go into the. No, you got to look cute and fabulous in your little thong and your little pantyhose, looking perched and cross the finish line on the tip of your toe with beads of sweat, looking fabulous, shoulders down as if nothing ever hurt you. You can't do that little, you got to look like a supermodel and diva goddess falling into the, forget about that too. Like there's nothing. You don't get to wear any of that. So when people talk about dancers all the time, Uncle Duncan will jump on it right away. Well, that's, look at you. I mean, look at Gronk. He's in Tampa Bay right now. Big old knee brace. I mean, he was a train wreck the past couple of years. And there were a lot of football players like that. And I tease some of the younger kids all the time when they're like, "Oh, you're not tough when you do that." And I read the list of injuries I've had, and I read the list of examples where they can get away doing stuff like that, wrap stuff up. You can't do that.
You can't. However, I in the chat, Lydia is cracking up because there is actually a really funny story with one of our former Ailey Diva sisters, Desiree Vlad. And Desiree, she started having back trouble. And I'll never forget, we were going on for Revelations, the last section, the yellow dresses. Yeah. And while she was waiting backstage, she had, we used to have those waist trainers, those warmers, whatever the hell, with the Velcro, the support.
Oh.
Forgot to take hers off. So she had it wrapped around her yellow dress. I was coming in from the other side of the stage, and I'm trying to she's ready to come in with her fan. So luckily, our 2 characters met upstage center. And so I said to her, "You have on your waist trainer."
Waist trainer?
Your waist trainer.
Oh.
Walks back towards the wing to rip it off and throw it in the wing, but you can hear the Velcro go. Well, the thing about, listen, if you guys are just joining, I am talking with the iconic, legendary, because you are, stop it.
Oh, look, there's Lydia Coco.
Yes, Lydia Coco. And Samantha, yes, fans, yes. Duncan Cooper of Dance Theater of Harlem, which is when I first became aware of Duncan. And I think, but even going back to just the body, I mean, dance is so extreme now, but ballet is very hard on the body. I mean, dance in general, yes, but ballet to me is that unforgiving thing, that tight fifth position, that check mark arabesque, you have to.
Yeah, I feel like even harder than it ever was when I was dancing. I mean, when I was dancing, it was like ballet, 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 my bad character dancing, and really bad Fosse jazz hands. And maybe an attempt to trying to do some Horton really, really badly. And, the Horton teacher, Duncan! That was it. These kids nowadays, they have to do classical ballet, all sorts of contemporary I never ever heard of, and all sorts of, into a boogaloo shrimp breakdancing move, into a backflip, and, and then bourrée. You got boys in some of the companies jokingly doing some of the girls' parts and point better than, and I'm like, that's not even so fabulous.
Yeah.
Instagrams. what's required of a young ballet dancer is so beyond anything I would have never been able to do what they do. The technical level, level is risen. Um, the requirements are crazy. I don't know how they get in that. You know, for me, that ballet training was an all day and day, entire lifetime thing to get 6 to 8 hours a day. So I don't know how they're fitting in all these other techniques. It's mind. And you know, in a ballet company now, I tell them all the time, where you're really going to be seen, it's really not in the classical works if you're a young dancer opportunity, really. It's really going to be in the, you know, a lot of the contemporary rep work that comes in there. And so, I mean, I remember the first year ABT did a Martha Graham piece. I was like, oh my, oh, you know, like, and now it's like, what? It's not such a big deal. You know what I mean? So there's all this merging of different techniques and styles and recreations of things. I mean, there's a big danger of that, right? Being great at everything and being good at everything and great at nothing.
Okay.
A watering down of a lot of things where you have these fabulous technical dancers, but artistically they can be dead because they haven't really focused on that storytelling. I mean, there's a lot of different things, but it's
Absolutely. You know, so that brings me to, so as I was, you know, digging around for things to like find on Duncan Cooper, I came across, which actually I couldn't believe the timing. You performed actually on Central Park Summer Stage.
Lord have mercy.
Oh, wait, kids. So.
Oh, and I have a story for you. I have a story.
For those who don't know,
have a story.
Me in general, I work for Summer Stage, which has its main stage in Central Park. Duncan performed 16 years ago, almost to the day yesterday, July 30, guys. Wait a minute. The time of this couldn't be better. I had no idea about this. July 30, 2004, it was the Balanchine Centennial. However, you and Alicia Graff,
yes,
now Alicia Graff Mack, were noted in the New York Times as the standouts in that performance. Ew! Jennifer Dunning. Boom. Talk about it. What's the story? I heard it was slippery.
Don't know Jennifer Dunning at that time, and still to a lot of people now, but it's a new generation there. She was considered, you got a good review from her, and it was a big deal.
Yeah.
So that said, just put a little bit in context. First of all, Apollo was a ballet I've always wanted to dance. And we were already doing it because I think we did a tour of Europe. I got to actually dance it in Greece, which is sort of ironic to dance a god in Greece. And again, you know, there's a lot of stuff about that role at that time. I mean, a Greek god, Greek white god, and I'm an African American man, half black and half white. But if there's no other black people around, I'm the blackest thing that's black. Then you know what I'm saying? So particularly on that stage, you just didn't see a lot of that, even at my time. And to be, you know, I remember seeing pictures of Eddie Shellman. I mean, just looking at him, he's just a statue to look at in, you know, in positions. It's gorgeous. So just a chance to do that, and all the works that we were getting to do at DTH, that was one I always wanted to dance. To dance it at Summer Stage with Alicia Graff was amazing, just because, and also intimidating because she's just got legs and feet. And, you know,
Yeah.
and the other ladies, I think we did the original version where he's in the wraps. Now, okay, so my man, Mr. Mitchell, I love him. He came out there. So a lot of people, if you don't know, Summer Stage is outside stage, and it had been raining the day before, and so it's a little rainy. I think it got delayed for a little bit, but Mr. Mitchell came out, and they were going to ask him a question or two. When you're set up there, there's the big piece out there, and I'm up on it and wrapped in it. So I have to go out. They bring me out there. And so real quickly, they decide to ask him a question or two. There is no real quickly with Mr. Mitchell. He was out there at the podium talking for like a half hour, and I am not exaggerating. My ass is in white tights and wrapped and is freezing out there, stuck on the thing, waiting to start. First nightmare situation. And I remember Ethan Stifel, because the ABT kids came on before, and Benjamin Milfreed, I think I think of Maria Karowski. I think they did Who Cares, a bunch of them. I
Yep.
remember looking to the right, and they were just cracking up at me, because they were, look at like, oh man, that really sucks, and yeah, so that's my story. He went on and on and on and talked about DTH. It's really interesting if I wasn't stuck up there and everybody else is like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. And so, yeah, it was,
Wow.
but to get to perform in that type of setting is amazing because you get, outside setting, you
Oh
get
yeah.
to see who your audience is a little bit more.
No, I mean I love being there, being on this side of it now, having danced
Yes.
10 years prior to you there, being there in '93 with Ailey. I mean, it's an amazing experience. I'm really missing it right now, and I know a lot of people are. But
What Summer represents, at that time as far as arts and culture and all the different things, not just dance, music,
oh yeah,
brought there. It is just, if you, for those of you that are viewing that aren't from New York City, it is an experience you have to have.
yeah,
There's far and few between nowadays. It's amazing. So, in my opinion. Uh,
yeah.
so, and yeah, so.
So Dance Theater of Harlem, you go there, you spend about 8, 9 years there, and I think the first time I saw you was Dance Theater of Harlem. You were with Alicia, Prodigal Son.
Yes.
Oh, the two of you, come on now. This had to be like late '90s though.
Yep.
This year, maybe 19 or 20.
Yeah.
She
That
starting
was Alicia. That was baby Alicia back then. She still was phenomenal then. I think that actually the first Prodigal Son I did with DTH was actually with Christina Johnson. And I think one of the pictures I gave is a picture of her in that. And
Yeah.
that time when I was at San Francisco Ballet, Christina was one of the DTH dancers that I knew that was always sort of like, why don't you come over here? And when I was at San Francisco, it's interesting because my first Prodigal Son, I shaved my legs and I lotioned my legs up because I wanted them to look real muscular.
Oh,
And I remember there's a part where your legs, you're here and you have her legs and her feet are here. And she started slide. It was a mess. Yeah. So she came off stage and Christina, her very nicely way, she was like, so Duncan, you know how she is at that calm voice. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But Prodigal Son is one of those ballets, another one of those roles that I was well known for. It's a role that I loved. And it's, it was the first role I danced with DTH when I went back for the first time to the Bay Area after leaving the company. And a lot of the San Francisco ballet dancers came out to see me dance in it. So it was sort of a version of the Prodigal Son coming back to and kind of reproving himself. I had a lot of full circle. And the fact that I got to dance with Christina, that I would occasionally see when she was in the Bay Area, was just amazing. And it became a role that I was real well known for.
Very well known.
It's dramatic. It's really dramatic, And as you well know me being the drama queen, very, let's just passionate artist. So
You have to be, I mean, you have to be an actor. You have to have something coming from somewhere. And even like in today's dancers, who I love today's dancers. I love the energy. Technique, yes, is going to keep going and going and going and going. It has to, right? As we progress, even in terms of technology and everything else, some good things about it, some bad things about it. These dancers today, men and women, the flexibility is stupid. The feet are stupid. I mean, everything's stupid, right? But in a good way, I'm saying it's good, right?
Yeah,
Stupid good.
yeah.
But what are we sacrificing in terms of the acting? What are we sacrificing in the intent? Like, I need to feel something, even if it's an abstract ballet. I forget who was saying this the other day, but have something going on for yourself, even inside, and own your own little story, so that you're conveying something.
100%, Danny. I tell dancers all the time. For me as a dancer, there is no movement without emotion.
Mm.
I don't do an arm gesture. I don't do a tandu that doesn't have an internal feeling. It might be, ooh, my foot hurts today, but I feel it spiritually and physically all the time. That's just me. So I don't understand a disconnect from that. Ultimately, who I am as a being. For some of these dancers, I constantly remind them, I say this all the time. If I have 15 of you, you all have feet like this, all have straight A's, all have 10 turns, high legs, then what? Then what is it? How do you stand out?
Wow.
Essence stands out. What makes you stand out of 15 other girls that can do everything that you can do?
Thank
So
you.
looking at you guys, yeah, there's all that technique stuff, but I'm looking at that other essence that makes you so memorable on stage that even if you messed up your pirouettes, not that I want to, I'm like, I can't get you out of my head. I want
Thank you.
scholarship. I
Yeah.
want part my information and my knowledge as a mentor to you. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so you want to be memorable on that stage. You want to be, even at because they all do competitions now, something you have to leave your essence there. Everything should fade away and it should just be zoomed into your solo. You should be taking us on a journey. You should have something to say even if you don't know what you're saying. Like
Mm-hmm.
French couple argue and that conversation she's yelling at him about, the words, but you just don't know the language, but you
Right.
feeling of that. You know what I mean? Because that's what it so much is when Romeo is embracing Juliet. The same story that I've seen 5,000 times. There's something about when you danced it that brings me back to my youth. That reminds me about what it's to be young. All that. That's great. You can do your 2-minute and 30-minute solo, but can you hold a 3-act ballet? The solos are short. The pas de deux is short. You have to carry the weight of a full production.
Right.
Walk across the stage, as Albrecht, and take your cape off or whatever, and really draw your audience into them. That's sort of matinee idol essence.
Mm-hmm.
And you just face back and just have your back to the audience and let your energy of your back take people over. Can you just step out on stage and immediately, you go, so these are the things that, like, beyond just technique, I saw. When I look at Rudolf Nureyev in a picture, I see that. You look at it, that black and white steel, there's one or two of them, of even Ailey, that just the energy that comes off of him. He doesn't have to be doing a leg over his head and twisted around his back or anything. It's just, it just comes out of them. And those are sort of the things that I can't really blame them too much for sometimes, Danny, because we're in the age of the instant gratification generation sometimes, where Uber Eats, they don't even, we had the Dewey Decimal System. They just have Google. We had 12 encyclopedias with like 4 bad black and white pictures of Africa, and that was Africa for us. They can now go 3D into Uganda down the river. So they can instantly do all these things. We sort of dumb down the work ethic and the process for them.
Right.
The most enriching things, we've almost made them consciously or unconsciously, for some of them, I won't say all of them, a bad thing. They want the prize, they want the trophy. However we can shorten the journey. Teach me my solo for 2 hours, bye, I'll see you, and then it's on stage. Whereas we would work on these things for months. We would investigate the character, all the process of being in the studio and working on it, taking the information, going home and bringing something back again the next day. The thing where we purposely are giving you too much, and I tell them all the time, they're going to give you too much information in an audition that took them 6 months to do, but they're going to throw a lot at you. You can't freak out and say, oh my God. You need to just embrace it, and they're going to want to see what you do when you mess up, because
Right.
the adversity that tells a director, a teacher, everybody what you're really good for. And I say all them, if I give you $100,000 to open a restaurant, I'm not interested in everything running well. I want to see what happens when the sewage pipe breaks and falls on your first customers. What are you going to do? And the chef just happened to walk out because he's ashamed. Are you going to just freak out, or are you going to go toast and put some peanut butter on it, cut the edges off, sit with the customers, bare your soul about your story, and apologize, and sit down with just 2 people and make it happen? And they're so inspired and feel so bad for you, they're going to come back the next day because they feel you, they feel connected to you. So that interconnection, those personal stories, that work ethic, all those things that we've shortened with Uber Eats, with Amazon Prime, where you can just pick up your groceries, you don't have to walk anywhere. With all these things, we've sort of dumbed it down and made so much of it easier with technology, which is a whole nother subject we could talk about. So I mean, those sort of things also too, just the sign of the times and where things are going. Everything is so fast and immediate now.
Yeah.
There's so much that they have to get in.
Well, that's why it's incredible that we have people like yourself who are these teachers, these masterclass teachers, these mentors. Because can we talk about for a hot quick second, because we have like 10 minutes, I have some other things I want to ask you about really quick. Your amazing niece, Tatiana. Now, she is one of those technique out the wazoo, dances with complexion, and what is she, 19, 20?
She's 20.
But every time she comes up on that stage, she is just giving it.
Had that,
And
had that the first time I saw her when she was 14 years old at NYCDA when I was teaching.
yes.
You can see some of these kids that innately have the, I mean, she would probably tell you that she wasn't thinking. I think some of the original skill sets she would just do and she didn't realize. The kids who, again, they're breaking apart the combination in the back. They're not just sitting there playing with their unitard, wondering, like, we get frozen yogurt and now who's, they're actively, all these little processes, I know, these little processes that make up an artist that we know so well that are, they're invisible things that we can't always describe right off the bat, but when we see them, we know them in a young dancer that are building blocks. Some of them are harder to find, and some of them are harder to train into them. Some of them have to be natural, that passion, that desire, that work ethic, that drive, the work ethic and drive. She had that. She came from a fantastic school in the Tampa Bay area. She had really great ballet teachers, and she had really great contemporary and jazz. So she was one of these kids that was the first, I'd say the second generation of the triple threat. I think Roscoe Thomas's generation and Dusty Button, they were really the first generation of that, where these kids were getting high-level ballet training and they were doing all these competitions. So two thoughts of training that were going on. One, Danny, was this where, like, a young child's brain is very open. You can throw languages at them, and they can take it so much more quickly. So that kind of picking up choreography quickly. And then there's the other one, which is slow, methodical. La, you train for years, and that's where I came from. Got both of those sides. So she was able to understand the syllabus of that structured, hardcore, everyday work, yet be able to pick up quickly choreography. So when she had her first opportunity at Texas Ballet Theater, she was picking up the choreography quicker than some of the older dancers were, because some of those dancers were almost too struck in the ballet world, where you train so much in the classical ballet, your ballet technique looks good, but you can't pick up no damn choreography.
Right.
So, and that's also a problem where I see these kids over-investing in ballet, training so much that they're terrified when they just haven't, they're not comfortable. Some of them are not as comfortable on stage. And then you get these incredible competition kids that are doing stuff you just would blow your mind, but they can't stand in first position. So she was able to get sort of both of those sides. And that sort of new generation of dancer, you're seeing that in a lot of ballet companies and contemporary companies. You even see it in some of the other dancers and complexions.
Oh, absolutely.
She just had that perfect balance of things. And just, I have to tell you, I've been sort of blown away. She's been teaching as Everybody's Surviving, and choreographer. She's an old soul. I was like, wow, I'm really impressed, because I wouldn't have been able to do anything she's doing now at that age. I was too busy.
I would have hung up my shoes a long time ago. But I also want to ask you too, because I know we're a little bit short on time, and I really wanted to get to this quickly. Is ballet has its representation issues. We know this, diversity issues.
Yeah.
And I feel like, now we're at that tipping point where people are way more aware of the lack of diversity in the upper ranks here and there. I feel like we're finally starting to make some real movement in that direction, more ballerinas of color in the larger companies. Are you hopeful? Are you hopeful that we'll get at some point?
Are we? Because the question, are we really getting the movement we want? That's what bounces in the back of my head. I say that because I'm old enough to have seen sort of things like this happen before in my lifetime. And after the trendy, popular thing happens, we're sort of back to the same thing again.
Right.
So,
but what I hear.
We're talking about structural changes that really have to happen. Like, we need more people in position of power.
Yes.
That will be able to apply the vision that then can be applied back down to the dancers.
Yes.
I think there's some good stuff coming. There is stuff happening in ballet coming. I think the director of Ballet West is doing a good job. He is a pretty diverse, but still, wouldn't it be interesting if we had an actual, how many directors of color do we have in ballet companies?
2, 3, a lot, but like,
wider, wider, you know, really it's going to come down to the director and the vision of the board.
Yeah.
Like, let's do a full-length ballet that has a storyline about some African proverb or story, of which there are many, which we don't have, you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Just being Sleeping Beauty and Swan Lake, all this, which I love.
Right.
Expand on that playlist, not taking away anything, right? Everybody's afraid when you add something or give somebody else something that they're going to lose something. Well, that's part of the issue too. I love everything about classical ballet, but I mean, I think it's great if a black ballerina had a choice to whether she wants to wear pink tights or brown tights. Mm-hmm. That option, and not to feel uncomfortable about having that option.
Thank you.
You know, the body thing is it can be a tricky subject on both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Part of my white card comes out being that I mix. I mean, you know, there are certain things about the certain African American body, because people forget there's a lot of different body types within the African American body.
Yes.
A lot of different viewpoints and different perspectives.
Yeah.
And how much do you change? What is the look of a ballet dancer?
Right.
And is that changing? Will it change? And then if you let in, let's say, you know, I see these, and this is just for sake of argument, you let in a dancer that has maybe some thicker thighs and legs, that's her body. That's not going to change. Can you see past that and see the technique more?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you know what I never wanted to be the dancer where I just got a job because of my skin color.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'd rather be a beautiful dancer, and oh, by the way, he is what he is.
Right.
So there's just a lot of it's so hard to talk to you about it because we need a whole nother hour. I don't know how to short.
This is a big part too, for certain, absolutely, because I feel like we're just getting to that point where this needs to be a whole other hour. So we'll leave it for part 2.
Danny, but there are issues right now. I mean, there's a lot of strife that's going on right now with some of these ballet companies. And I will say these ballet companies are making efforts. They really are. They're kind of slammed, forced.
Yeah.
Really deal with it. And there's a lot of context without putting out any names and associations. A lot of great context and a lot of openness. But again, I'm curious to see where it will evolve to. Will it create some opening of minds? How far are they willing to go out of how they see the vision of their company? How much are they willing to change that? Why are you changing it? Are you just changing it because of Black Lives Matter movement is popular right now? Or are you changing it because, would you have done this without that? Or, you know, if you start hiring more people in, are they going to feel uncomfortable that you're just hiring them? Like, what? We've been here. Y'all didn't hire before. Not like we've been anywhere. Now,
right.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of, tension within that. So, and the situations are different with each company and each community, going on in those different areas and cities and challenges. But am I hopeful? I've always been hopeful.
Absolutely.
I've always understood too that I come from a place of privilege. I question sometimes, would I even be in the place if I didn't have that talent and those opportunities and being at the right place at the right time?
I hear you. So I want to right there, because we have less than a minute to go. And people, if you don't know Duncan Cooper or you want to know more, please make sure you go to his website, DuncanCooper.com. You can learn about everywhere that he's teaching, all your academy, the dance, summer intensives, all of the above. I don't want it to cut us off. There's going to be part 2, because I think this is a great conversation. It might have to be a whole Zoom thing where we can bring in other people as well.
I think let's talk more about race and culture next time, because there is so much. And also the digital aspect about where digitally it's leading you and I and everybody having to be forced into figuring out how we can make Zoom and all these things work for us, because it's going to be the world.
So 5 seconds left. If you're listening to this right now, I do have a great show coming up on my Summer Stage Anywhere platform, Monday at 7. You don't want to miss it. Check out the website. Duncan, we're going to get cut off, but I love you. Part 2. Thank you, Cooper.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.